Hello, my name is Henry Loengard, and I'm the developer of the iPad and iPhone version of the Adaptive Use Musical Instrument, which is an app which uses video tracking in order to play sound or musical notes so that people who have very little voluntary movement can, in fact, participate in improvisatory music circles and also to get some feedback for themselves and just play with it. The adaptive use musical instrument, which I usually call AUMI, looks like this. It's very nice. Oop. And it works pretty well. The technology of AUMI is mostly a way to trigger a single sound. It's a lot like a piano. You hit the key, the sound comes out, ta-da, you're done, right? Or a percussive instrument. You hit the drum, you hit the clock, whatever it is you're hitting. It makes a sound and you don't have much control over what happens after you've hit it. It's percussive. It was brought to my attention that it might make sense to use the features of AUMI, which is to say that video tracking, to go and control some kind of vocal synthesis so that people who cannot speak can participate in choral groups, in choirs, and can sing along with other people. Well, that opens a huge Pandora's box of technologies. Artificially produced singing has been going on for a pretty long time, and speech mostly, but the difference between speech and singing is mostly one of how you're articulating it and controlling it, but not the actual synthesis part. The question becomes, how do you get this technology together? Again, there's been a long period of being able to do these vocal synthesis algorithms and artificial speech, even for singers, if there's enough control in order to drive these models. Obviously, speech is a very complicated information problem. You've got a lot of things going on simultaneously, and they have to happen pretty quickly in order for that to be perceived as recognizable speech. So you might be able already to have people without voices sing in your choir if they're using one of these vocal synthesis programs, which would require them to know how to play some MIDI instruments and really set it up. So the question becomes, how do you get people without the fine motor skills needed to play on a MIDI controller, or without the technical skills to set all that up, to participate in a choir? So it became an interesting question to see if we can get AUMI, which has basically no interface but the light that's reflecting off of a person and a phone or an iPad, to bring these people into a situation where they can sing with a choir. One of the other issues is, what is it that they're singing? How articulate should that be? What kind of singing? What kind of music? Because a choir is a choir, there's a rock band, it's soloing, it's chorusing, it's harmonizing, and how much of that can be put under the control of something that is basically just tracking the position of something and its speed. So AUMI Sings is being developed in order to, first of all, have a number of different kinds of trackers in it, so that as I develop the algorithms more, I'll be able to get more information out of the video signal in the first place. The other side of it is to highly restrict the kind of choices that the video tracker's signals can control. So if the only things I can do is track left, right, up, down, maybe in and out a little bit, and the speed of all those things, then those 6 or so parameters should be used in order to control the synthesized voice. And there is a lot of other questions, like what kind of a voice should that be? After all, it's all synthesized, so a young man could be singing a soprano, or conversely, a older woman could be singing a basso, or they could swap from one to another, or it could just sound robotic, or it could sound very human, or it could sound some mix of the two. So how does that fit into a musical composition? A lot of the musical material that you find in choirs is made of harmonies and melodies that are placed in time. Now, there's a kind of music where those things are not so important, but in a chorus and in a choir, you might want to have more control over the synthesis algorithm so that it is, in fact, good enough for singers who are using this synthesis to participate with singers who aren't, and to play pieces that aren't specifically made for that synthesis algorithm. It may be a while before we get to that point, but that's certainly the goal. Of course, anything that can handle synthesizing a voice can handle a whole lot of other synthesis choices, so you don't really have to be singing, but we'll just concentrate on the problem of using video tracking to control singing as the point of AUMI Sings, which is what it is. So AUMI Sings will be using a video tracker to control a very restricted model of a voice, which is basically a sample with a beginning, looped part in the middle, and an end. And the motion that instigates this sound and is going on while the sound is playing will be how it is articulated and how it makes transitions from one sound to another. One of the things that AUMI Sings does that AUMI doesn't do is that it will be able to jump from one setup of sound possibilities to another setup of sound possibilities. So that's how the composition can get structured with enough leeway so that an actual performance can happen rather than just triggering off pre-recorded sections. So that's how I intend to take the small amount of information that I can pull from a video tracker to go and control a similarly restricted set of parameters that would drive the synthesis, mostly sample playing, that is underlying AUMI Sings. And the articulations on the screen will be able to be picked up and used to transition from one set of sounds to another, so that you can progress through a composition singing and also have some articulation on the actual synthesis at the same time. AUMI Sings looks an awful lot like AUMI, but it is a much more powerful program because it has a much more difficult problem to solve. Rather than just playing a single sound, it needs to be able to jump from sets of sounds to other sets of sounds, and also to manipulate the sound while it's still playing, just using the same video tracking technologies that I already have for AUMI. Looks something like this, very much like AUMI already, but it has a very, very different set of internals in order to be able to jump between states so that different parts of a musical composition can be accessed from the screen without needing any keyboards or any switches or any other external equipment. The idea is to run completely off of iPads or iPhones and use that to be able to allow people to participate in singing and in choirs. Will it be able to do anything completely arbitrary? No. There's a vast amount of setup that would be needed to do a composition, because it needs to be ironed out into such a shape that it can be played. On the other hand, it should also be able to do anything that AUMI does. So all the instruments that AUMI has, I could, in theory, also put into AUMI Sings. But for now, we're going to try and do something more sophisticated than what AUMI does. And AUMI does it so well You don't really need another program to do that. So stay tuned to find out more about AUMI Sings as I develop it more in the future. Thank you.